Data Skeptic mini-episodes provide high-level descriptions of key concepts related to data science and skepticism. Today's topic is Receiver Operating Characteristic Curve, or ROC Curve.
So we used to feed Yoshi vegetables, huh? Now we feed her pellets. Why did we change?
Well, I read a lot of bird books, and they said that if you feed birds food, then they'll only pick and choose certain things of the food. And they may not even be eating the food. They could just be sucking up the water, so they could be malnutritioned, or I don't even know the word. They could not be getting enough nutritions because birds are very picky eaters and they'll just eat whatever they want. And so I got worried about Yoshi, and I was like, no, I want Yoshi to be well-rounded and a healthy bird. And they said pellets, which are unfortunately and fortunately consistent throughout in terms of nutrients, were the best bet.
So does she like these pellets as much as the vegetables?
No, she does not. But I actually think she's gotten used to them to the point where if you give her other things, she'll be like, nah, I kind of like my pellets.
Most listeners probably do not own parrots. That's a fair assumption. So what do parrots even eat?
I think everyone feeds their parrot something different, but the most common thing is seeds because they really, really love seeds.
Yeah.
They're very fatty, and birds have beaks, so they like to open the seeds. They actually love opening seeds.
Yeah.
They find it very fun.
Yep.
They love the texture of it. Yoshi just likes to open everything, and she treats everything she eats like a seed, really. Yoshi, at least her personality is we give her food, and she will go through and pick, if we give her pellets, she goes through and picks out all the green ones first. Then she picks the orange and pink ones. And then she leaves the yellow for last. Yeah, so basically birds are very particular.
Yeah.
When we give her food, we like to jump in and see what she eats first, because she will eat it in the exact order that she likes it.
Is she pretty constant? Does she eat the same things every day?
No. If you gave her blueberries every day for 2 weeks, she would be really excited at first, but near the end, she might ignore them. She gets jaded.
Yeah. Not unlike people, I guess.
Yep.
We pretty much give her the pellets consistently, right?
Yeah, because I heard it was healthier for birds.
Yeah. So does it go up and down? Does she need more or less pellets on different days?
I mean, some days she eats them, some days she doesn't.
Yeah, but we definitely don't want her to be hungry and suffer, do we?
No, because if she were hungry, that would be sad.
Yeah. What if we could predict how many pellets she'll eat in a given day?
Oh, that would be really good, because I could give her the exact amount of food that she needs, and I hate wasting food.
Yeah,
so
you really do.
that would make me feel better for the environment and the world.
Do you think we could predict how much food she actually wants?
Yeah, I mean, maybe you could. It depends what she has, what she ate the night before. And then if we're eating, she's likely to eat at the same time.
Yeah, she loves to eat when we eat.
Yeah.
What about the time of day you give her the food?
Morning, she will definitely eat breakfast.
Yeah.
She's very hungry in the morning.
Right.
But dinner, she may not be as hungry.
It might be useful if we built a nice classifier that predicted if she needs a lot of pellets or a little bit of pellets. So we can leave this question of how do we build such a classifier for another episode. But let's assume we constructed a model that takes all these sorts of things into account. Her hunger level, what she ate yesterday, and we tried to predict, is she going to eat any of her pellets today? Because there are days I come home and she hasn't eaten any of the pellets.
Yeah, I think it's because I gave her other food at the same time.
That would be a feature we could look at. Did you give her other food and what other food? So let's assume we have this model that predicts if she's going to eat any pellets or not. There's a trade-off we can make between false positives and false negatives. Do you remember when we talked about false positives and false negatives way back when?
A little bit, but not much.
In this case, if we're predicting, will Yoshi eat any of her pellets, what would be a false positive?
It would mean it predicts that she would, but in reality, she does not.
Yeah. For a second, before we get into our actual topic, talk about the cost basis of that. Let's say we predicted she's going to eat the pellets and she doesn't. What harm is done?
Wasted food.
Yeah. What if we predict she won't eat any pellets, but actually she wishes she could have eaten a bunch of pellets?
Oh, well, that's sad, because then she's probably hungry if we don't give her food.
Yeah, it's also sort of unobservable because she can't really file a grievance with the Avian Association of California or whomever it is looks after birds and makes sure the pet owners are doing a good job. There's this balance. We'd almost like to tune our model to balance between the rate of false positives and false negatives. Do you see how there's kind of a trade-off there? Like we could always say suggest more often. We'll have less false negatives, but at the expense of many more false positives. There's this thing that's called the ROC curve, or receiver operator characteristic curve. So let's actually look at one. Linda, can you maybe describe that picture?
Well, first of all, it's a square. And from the lower left corner to the upper right-hand corner, there's a straight diagonal line. Yeah, then imagine like an ant mound above the diagonal curve. And then there's another ant mound, but it's basically hugging the upper left corner of the square.
The first curve, both those two curves are two different models. And this on the x-axis shows the rate of false positives, and on the y-axis, the rate of false negatives. So you can see how there's a trade-off. As you reduce one, the other goes up, and that kind of makes sense.
False positive means the model thinks that she is going to eat her pellets, but she doesn't. And then the false negative means that it thinks she's not going to eat her pellets, but she would if they were there.
Yeah, that's right. So which situation is worse?
If it predicts that she's not hungry, but she is, because emotionally, it's not good to have a hungry bird.
If we only tuned for false positives, we'd give her way too much food, right?
Yes. We don't really want to have false negatives because Yoshi would go hungry. So we should definitely have more false positives than false negatives.
Yeah, indeed. So she can be a little bit hungry once in a while, and she also usually has other food available. There's seeds in her cage. We want to bias towards more than enough. So in addition to helping tune our models, an ROC curve also helps us evaluate different models. Like maybe I produce one and we get like a listener to look at the data set, and they produce even a better model than I do, maybe because they spent a little bit more time on it, or they're more clever than me. And this is the other angle on ROC curves. What if we had two different models and we had to decide which one is better? We would consider the area under the curve.
Which curve?
So both curves. So let's go back and look at that picture. Or for anyone who's maybe driving, and I don't encourage you to look down at your screen to see that image that's on the show notes, but there's two lines in that plot, and those are like two different models.
I thought there were 3 lines. There's a diagonal and then 2 curvy anthills.
Yeah, good point. So the diagonal line is the baseline. That's for a model that doesn't really predict anything. It's just sort of like the flip of a coin or a weighted coin. You should never do worse than the diagonal line.
Could it be below the diagonal and random?
Well, random is the diagonal line. So that diagonal line is the 50-50 line. So no model should be worse than random chance.
Okay.
That's why we put that diagonal line in there. And then the other 2 lines are 2 different models that are showing the trade-off they have as you tune for false positives or false negatives. One question we could ask is like, which model is better? And for that, we look at the area under the curve, or AUC. AUC measures how well the model does across all the tunings.
What does tunings mean?
Oh, so tuning is if you want to set your model to give you more false positives or more false negatives. So like in the case like we said with Yoshi, it's a trade-off between being more wasteful and giving her too much food, or risking her being hungry. And we definitely don't want her to be hungry. That's a high cost to us, like the cost in this case being her suffering. But, we don't want to put a gallon of food in there every week to ensure that she never suffers. Like you have to have a balance. So we would balance to have more false negatives, in which case we give her food she doesn't need, than false positives. But you can't be 100%. So tuning a model means selecting the right threshold.
So the curve with the most area underneath it is the best one?
Yeah. That means that independent of tuning, it has the most predictive power. It captures the situation the best in general. So imagine if you took a crayon or something, you colored in everything below that curve. The model that requires the most ink is the best one because it covers the most true cases.
Okay, I'm just going to point out you went from crayon to ink. So you did not keep with your...
All right. So yes, wax and ink are 2 separate things.
Anyways.
Yeah.
So looping it all back. So when should I feed Yoshi?
If we had this model to predict how much she needs, feed her in the way that best balances keeping her satisfied while not wasting too much food. And that's what an AUC curve, that's what an ROC curve would help you do. And AUC would help you evaluate if you had two competing models, which one does best in general. As a last note, it's also worth mentioning that it's sensitive to what's called rank ordering, so it works even in imbalanced sample. Like Yoshi pretty much eats her pellets every day, so most of our examples are in the situation where she, needs her pellets. We don't have as many counter examples where she doesn't eat anything. Although there's definitely some, right? How often does she not eat anything?
I don't know. I think she eats seeds when she doesn't eat anything. So.
Is this going to alter any of the ways you choose to feed Yoshi?
No, you didn't give me a model.
Yeah, I didn't actually give you the model. I just talked about the diagnostics of the model.
Yeah.
Maybe we need a model. I don't know. We got those drop cams now. Maybe we could do some studies of how much she consumes. In any event, thank you as always for joining me, Linda.
Thank you.
And until next time, I want to remind everyone to keep thinking skeptically of and with data.
For more on this episode, visit dataskeptic.com. If you enjoyed the show, please give us a review on